Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. Real life's a little bit hectic right now, so I might have missed the first days of the PTU. I've been cracking on over the weekend with some folks from Frontier, and we've been diving into all sorts of new features and content. In this vid, I want to take a little look at the new salvage features, specifically the new structural salvage. So if that sounds good to you, then grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, then let's get into it. So after a long wait, I saw that a lot of people on YouTube and Spectrum were a bit disappointed in the structural salvage features. Maybe I missed the point, or maybe I'm just a bit more boring than most, but I've actually been enjoying it quite a bit, along with some of the updates we'll see for the Reclaimer. I suppose one of the key complaints is the relative simplicity of the mechanics. Essentially, once you've stripped any RMC that you want from the derelict hull, you can break down the hull and disintegrate the parts to produce another resource, construction materials. The Vulture does this from the same operator seat, but on the Reclaimer you finally get to unleash the claw. You'll need to look to the left to power on, and then press M to extend the claw. The seat has two modes, a fracturing field to break apart larger ships, and a disintegration field to suck in the resources once pieces are small enough. Unfortunately, this means that the really cool original concept art of the Reclaimer hasn't really been adhered to, and rather than a crunching claw to slice and dice your wreck, the appendage acts as an array for the two fields, and for the time being at least, it's a case of point and click. For larger wrecks like this hammerhead, you'll need to first use the fracturing field, which just requires you to get close enough to get the green outline. Then click once and wait for the circular meter to fill, at which point the craft will break apart. The closer you are, the quicker that will fill, so you want to get in nice and close but without dislodging the wreck and sending it spinning. Then you'll be able to switch over to the disintegration field with the right mouse button. Here you'll ideally want to have a bit of coordination with your pilot, because based on your range it's possible to get between a negative 19% and a positive 19% buff or debuff to the yield. Only the claw operator gets a readout, so what myself and Lion's Mane were doing was using a stream via Discord so we could see each other's positioning as well as talking to one another. If you've got an extra crewmate on board, you can also use the tractor beams on the Reclaimer's turrets to position the pieces, ensuring that you don't have too much in your field's range at once, and that it's well placed to get close to. Really cool upgrade to salvaging ships is the inclusion of a buffer, so you now have 240 SCU of internal space on the Reclaimer. This means you don't necessarily have to have someone down in the box room the whole time, and you can instead rotate a crewmate or two down there when you're full or near to full to expel the boxes. The Reclaimer has also had a buff in that it can produce 1 SCU, 2 SCU, 8 SCU, and 16 SCU crates. You'll want max 8 SCU ones for down in the actual cargo hold, but the salvage processing deck storage has also been enhanced, so you can now stack crates 2 high, and here you can fit some of the 16 SCU boxes. Once you've selected your box type, you can either eject them one by one, or you can set them to auto-eject as long as you can keep up with their output. Don't worry, it's quite a comfortable pace, particularly since you can always position 2 of you down there in the hold for this bit. Hopefully over time we are going to see a bit more of a skill-based minigame evolve around the structural salvage aspect. This would be really cool and it would add something to the salvage loop. But Thorsten's been quite active on Spectrum chatting to backers, and he's confirmed that this is essentially a stand-in mechanic, and they need the full Maelstrom system to really do what they're intending to. And to be fair, having missed out on some of the initial drama, I think when you take this alongside the overall enhancements to the Reclaimer in terms of the buffer and the cargo situation, it's an undeniable upgrade versus what we've had until this point. My only real big point of contention, having seen it featured in last week's ISC, is that we rushed out to do some critical threat beacons in the PTU, took down an Idris, waited for that fracturing field to fill all the way to the top, and absolutely nothing happened. You can disintegrate some of the smaller parts off the Idris, like the engine nacelles, but the main body, despite having a readout of 1500 SCU of construction mats, doesn't break apart. I would be extremely happy to find out that we were just unlucky and had a bugged Idris. We did try to go and do it again, but I also found out that I can make an entire Idris disappear just by trying to steal the size 10 mass driver off it. And also that said mass driver doesn't fit into a Hercules. The other, maybe more pressing concern that I have is in terms of balancing though. As many of you will probably know, I suffer from a deep dark problem, and that's that at times I just can't help myself when it comes to min-maxing. The devs have tried to encourage hull scraping in Salvage repeatedly, and in the latest PTU build they've scaled the price of RMC up to 14,000 credits per SCU, which is pretty good. However, it still doesn't make any sense to do when the supply of derelicts is essentially infinite, and while the far quicker to gather construction materials still sell for 6,000 credits per SCU. We went out and did a hammerhead salvage mission just as an example, knowing that we can very easily get our hands on a steady supply of them either through the salvage missions tab or by killing them ourselves through combat missions of all kinds. So by scraping the hull, we got 47 SCU of RMC, worth 672k at these increased prices. Not too shabby, but that did take two of us about 40-45 minutes of scraping. Meanwhile, from the same hammerhead, when we switched over to structural salvage, we got 273 SCU of construction materials, worth 1.64 million. And this took us a fraction of the time, despite the fact that we were messing around with the tractor beams to try and perfect our yields. Currently in this build, I still can't see why you would hull scrape, unless you were doing it for RP purposes. And to be clear, I'm not knocking RP, and I've really enjoyed a few sessions of chilling out on the Reclaimer chatting with my mates while we strip a ship. But in terms of financial motivation, you would be much better off skipping straight over scraping and going directly for the structural element, then moving on to find the next hammerhead, particularly if you're working in tandem with cargo ships and you can offload your goods as you go. I'm not really sure what the answer is here. I know full well that I don't hold any qualifications in game design, but just from a purely formulaic perspective, if CIG want the average player to see out the loop of locate, scrape, disintegrate, then either the speed of hull stripping needs to be dialed up, the value of RMC needs to be dialed up another notch, or the value of construction materials needs to take a nerf. So I hope you enjoyed this quick rundown of the new salvage mechanics. I know that I glossed over the Vulture here and focused on the Reclaimer. Partly it's because the Reclaimer's one of my top 3 ships, and partly it's because my weekends are only so long. But structural salvage and the ongoing tweaks to the loop have been one of the main reasons I haven't put together a proper guide for the profession. But that will be coming in 3.22, and it will go into full detail on both of the ships. If you did enjoy this vid, and you'd be keen to see that one when it comes out, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and of course I don't mind if you drop a like as well. But with all that said, thank you very much for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.